I'll never forget the moment I realized my marriage had an expiration date. One my wife had written without telling me. And the irony? Everyone thought I was the oblivious one, the soft one, the man who never saw anything coming. They were wrong. She thought she'd planned my downfall to the hour, but she didn't plan on me finding the script. Before we start, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. Because trust me, you're about to have an opinion. It began on a Tuesday morning, one of those quiet ones where the house feels half asleep. I was digging through the old shared laptop on the kitchen table, hunting for last year's tax return. Morning light spilling across the counter, coffee cooling beside me, nothing unusual. The folder I clicked was labeled Family Planning. Harmless. I expected budgets, vacation notes, maybe reminders. Instead, I opened a document titled Operation Renewal, Timeline and Execution Strategy. My wife, Lauren, had named it like a corporate project. At first I thought it was a joke. Then I read the opening line, Objective, Structured Removal and Separation by late Q2. My hands went cold. My name was listed as primary variable. Her mother, Diane, was financial oversight. Her brother, Mark, was on-site support. There were bullet points, phases, and sub-phases like she was preparing to dismantle a faulty machine, not end a 7-year marriage. Phase 1. Create emotional distance. Document conflicts. Maintain calm tone. Record financial behaviors. Duration: 8 to 12 weeks. Phase 2. Initiate structured separation conversation with witnesses present. Duration: 2 to 4 weeks. Phase 3 involved changing locks, securing assets, filing paperwork during a time when I'd usually be traveling for work. Phase 4. Well, Phase 4 made it clear she expected me to be out of my own home before summer even arrived. And I sat back, listening to the hum of the dishwasher as if the house was trying to pretend nothing had just cracked open. I clicked deeper. She'd been tracking every dollar I'd spent for months. My new tires, 20-year-old ones replaced for safety, were labeled excessive automotive spending. A dinner with my coworker Dan? Unnecessary outing without consultation. Another tab showed projected outcomes. How much she expected to take, what she'd demand, what she'd claim. She even had scripted responses for imaginary arguments. My words rewritten before I ever spoke them, that I hadn't even known she was unhappy. The door opened that evening. Lauren breezed in with takeout, laughing, setting bags on the counter like nothing in the universe was wrong. I grabbed Ty. Thought you might be hungry. Her voice was warm, familiar, her eyes bright, and all I saw was the printed timeline in my mind. How was your mom? I asked casually. Oh, you know Mom, she said, waving it off. Planning her spring garden. She wants us to help plant this year. She kissed my cheek. The same cheek she'd listed under a bullet point called Maintain Normal Affection Patterns to avoid suspicion. That I sat with that for a while, eating my food in silence while she talked about weekend plans. She suggested cleaning out the garage. That was on her checklist too. Engage in domestic tasks to reinforce stability narrative. If she'd asked me that morning how I felt about her, I would have said, safe. That evening, I felt something different. Like I was staring at a person wearing a mask molded from someone I used to love. But I didn't confront her. I didn't flinch. I didn't breathe differently. I just watched, listened, memorized. That night, when she fell asleep on the couch next to me while the TV murmured in the background, I replayed every detail of the document. The tabs, the scripts, the execution chart, the cold efficiency of it all. She wanted a clean removal, a quiet exit, a story where she was the brave one seeking a better future while I stumbled around clueless. So I did the only thing that made sense in that moment. I stopped reacting. I stopped assuming. And in the stillness of my own living room, I began planning. Not revenge. Not anger. A response. A quiet one. A patient one. A precise one. She thought she was running phase one. But I had just discovered something far more useful. Her entire blueprint. And the moment you understand the rules of a game someone's playing against you, the game changes completely. I didn't sleep much after finding that document. Not from fear. Fear had burned off within hours. What settled in its place was something steadier, colder, almost mathematical. Lauren had spent months drawing the map she planned to follow. All I had to do was read it and walk ahead of her. The next morning, I left home 30 minutes early. I didn't go to the office. I drove downtown to a law firm a colleague once mentioned, a place known for protecting people caught in complicated domestic storms. The receptionist squeezed me into an early slot, and by 8:15 I was sitting across from attorney Craig Howell, a man with gray hair, sharp eyes, and a voice that sounded like he'd argued with storms and won. I slid the printed copy of Lauren's Operation Renewal across the table. He read silently, page after page, expression stony. When he finished, he tapped the stack lightly. "How long have you known?" "Since yesterday." "Does she know you found it?" "No," he nodded, slow and deliberate. "Good. That gives you room. And this," he tapped the title with one finger, "is the most detailed premeditation I've seen in years. She documented everything. That's a gift." It was strange hearing it framed that way. A gift. But he was right. She'd written her moves like sheet music. All I had to do was play early. Craig laid out the first steps with the calm certainty of someone who'd done this 100 times. I needed a separate bank account. My income redirected. My retirement beneficiary updated. Passwords changed, accounts documented, transactions recorded down to the minute. Not to hide anything, he was clear about that. "Judges don't like surprises," he said. "They like evidence, fairness, clarity. You'll give them all three." By lunch, I'd already completed almost everything on his list. New checking account at a credit union across town. Half of our joint savings transferred, exactly half down to the dollar, with screenshots and a signed note explaining why. I changed passwords, secured documents, contacted HR, flagged my retirement account for verification checks. I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was protecting. The irony wasn't lost on me. Lauren's plan had required weeks of manipulation. Mine was built in 9 hours using nothing but honesty and preparation. When I got home that night with a gallon of milk, she was making chicken and vegetables, humming softly. She smiled when she saw me. She kissed my cheek. She told me she loved me. And the thing that struck me hardest wasn't the lie, no, it was how natural she was at performing sincerity. "How was your day?" she asked gently. "Productive." That word held a different meaning for both of us. She poured wine. She talked about her mother's upcoming birthday. She laughed about something that happened at work. She moved around the kitchen like we were living the life she'd already scheduled to dismantle. I watched her from the table, quietly, the way a person watches a stranger who just happens to be wearing the face of someone familiar. After dinner, she went upstairs to take a bath. I opened the shared laptop and checked the document again. She'd updated it. Week 6. Normal patterns maintained. No suspicion detected. Phase 2 prep meeting scheduled for Saturday. My initials sat there like a label on a file. I closed the laptop. She had no idea she was writing her own trail of evidence with every keystroke. Saturday arrived fast. She said she had brunch with her mom and aunts. She wore a casual dress, kissed me goodbye, and left the house at 10. I waited 15 minutes before leaving myself. The county clerk's office was quiet. Craig had prepared a full packet for formal filing. A protective paper trail showing every defensive action I took occurred only after discovering coordinated planning against me. It wasn't aggression. It was documentation. 40 minutes later, everything was stamped and legal. Proof. receipts, a timeline she couldn't argue with. When Lauren came home around 4, she smelled faintly of perfume. Not brunch perfume, the kind worn when you expect to perform confidence. "How was brunch?" I asked. "Fun," she said brightly, slipping out of her shoes. "We maybe had too many mimosas." According to her document, she'd spent the afternoon finalizing Phase 2 strategy. And yet she grinned at me like she'd just spent hours laughing with her mother. That night, after she went to bed, I checked again. Another update. Phase 2 preparation complete. Team aligned. Execution targeted for 2 weeks. My name appeared 5 times in that update. Notes about expected reactions, expected objections, expected defensiveness. She was building a version of me that didn't exist, a character she could manipulate into the corner she needed. The week that followed moved slowly. Too slowly. Lauren was more affectionate than usual. Asked about my day. Reached for my hand. Watched TV pressed against my side. Every move was in her script. Every gesture intended to keep me steady while she adjusted the chessboard. But I wasn't her pawn. Not anymore. Thursday night, she stepped outside to take a call. When she came back, she told me her brother's car broke down and she'd be gone about an hour. She was gone for 3. The document updated again that night. Phase 2 execution plan finalized. Witnesses coordinated. Conversation scheduled. The evening was chosen with precision. The time, the witnesses, the script. I read it quietly, letting the words settle like dust on a long-abandoned room. She thought she was preparing to confront me. In reality, she was telling me exactly where to stand and when to press record. The closer the chosen day came, the more jittery she grew. She cleaned obsessively, rearranged shelves, reorganized drawers, asked strange questions about weekend plans. Her smile was stretched thin at the edges. I answered everything calmly. I didn't push. I didn't blink. I let her believe her timeline was intact. Saturday morning arrived. The day she'd picked as though choosing a date from a menu. She cooked breakfast, something she hadn't done in months. "What are your plans today?" she asked, voice too light. "Not much," I said. "Maybe watch the game." She hesitated before offering. "I might invite my mom and Mark over. They haven't been here in a while." That line was straight from her plan. Establish natural reason for witness presence. I nodded. "Whatever you want." She let out a slow, relieved breath. Everything was falling into place for her. And for me, because she didn't know about the small camera disguised as a charging station, or the phone set to record, or the attorney on standby. She didn't know the script she planned to follow wasn't the only one in the room. She didn't know that when 6 o'clock rolled around, and her witnesses walked through the front door, something in the air would shift, subtle, but enough to change everything. But not yet. Not here. This part ends where the living room clock ticked toward evening, where the players arrived exactly on schedule, and where I sat on the couch appearing relaxed, waiting for the moment she thought she controlled. She had no idea the ground beneath her plan had already begun to move. They showed up at exactly 6, just like her document predicted. Diane walked in first, giving me the kind of polite smile people use when they're preparing to judge you. Mark followed, clapping me on the shoulder with forced cheer. Lauren acted surprised, as if they hadn't rehearsed every step of the evening together. I sat on the couch, beer in hand, posture relaxed, heart steady. Not because I wasn't aware of what was coming, because I was aware of every word they planned to say. The game played softly on the TV. Small talk floated around the room like air freshener, artificial and thin. At 6:28, right on schedule, Lauren muted the television. The remote clicked loudly in the silence. "Actually," she began, her voice gentle, staged, While we're all here, I wanted to talk about something important. I nodded, giving her the opening she expected. She took a slow breath, the same breath she described in her script. I've been thinking a lot about us, Evan, about our relationship, and I feel like we've grown apart, like I need space to rediscover myself. Mark and Diane watched me like spectators at a trial, waiting, recording every reaction for their narrative. Okay, I said, one word, calm. Unsurprising for me, but unexpected for her. She blinked quickly, recalibrating. I'm not blaming you, she said, moving to her next script bullet. But I've noticed patterns that concern me. Your financial decisions without discussing things with me. The way you shut down emotionally. I see, I said. Her voice flickered. This wasn't how her rehearsal had gone. She pressed on. I think maybe we should consider a separation, temporary at first, so I can have space. When would you want this to start? I asked. She froze. Diane jumped in just as the script indicated. Lauren needs stability. She should stay here. You can find another place until everything settles. I set my beer down gently. Interesting idea. 3 pairs of eyes focused on me. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and tapped the screen. The document photos appeared, the ones I'd taken the day I found her plan. I held the screen up. Tell me, I asked, is this part of the separation too? Lauren's face drained of color. Mark leaned forward. Diane stiffened. I scrolled. The title glowed like a courtroom spotlight. Operation Renewal, Timeline and Execution Strategy. Lauren stood abruptly. You went through my private files? I went through a shared laptop, I said calmly, looking for tax documents. And I found your project plan for removing me from my own home. Diane's face tightened. This is inappropriate? No, I said. This is documentation. I reached for the laptop on the side table, the one they didn't know I had turned on 15 minutes earlier. With one motion, I spun it around. On the screen, Attorney Craig Howell sat in a quiet office, watching. Good evening, he said, his voice calm and steady. I'm Craig Howell, legal counsel. For the record, this conversation has been observed and recorded. Lauren collapsed back onto the couch, staring at the screen like it was a ghost. For the past several weeks, Craig continued, my client has taken lawful, documented steps to protect his assets after discovering a premeditated plan to manipulate separation proceedings. Diane sputtered. This is harassment. No, ma'am, Craig said. This is transparency. Your daughter initiated a scripted confrontation with coordinated witnesses. My client merely ensured the full truth. Not a curated version was recorded. Mark glared at Lauren. You told us he had no idea. I thought he didn't, she whispered. I closed the laptop softly, letting silence hang in the air. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're all going to leave. And Lauren, you're going to stay somewhere else tonight. Your mother's a hotel anywhere but here. If you refuse, I'll leave instead. But this conversation is over. Diane grabbed her purse, muttering threats about attorneys. Please do call yours, I said, opening the door. Craig knows him already. They filed out like a defeated team walking off a field. Lauren lingered, trembling. How long have you known? She asked. 3 weeks. And you let me keep going? I let you follow your plan exactly as you wrote it, I said. You wanted witnesses. You wanted documentation. You wanted a clean narrative. Well, now we both have one. She swallowed hard. I didn't mean to hurt you. You meant to protect yourself, no matter what it cost me. Her eyes filled, but tears meant nothing now. I told her to pack a bag. She returned downstairs in 8 minutes. At the door she whispered, "I did love you." "No," I said. "You loved the idea of being in control." She left. I closed the door, locked it, and let the quiet settle over me like a blanket I hadn't realized I'd been missing. Monday morning, Craig filed the paperwork. It moved fast, shockingly fast. Her second attorney reviewed her own document trail and urged her to settle without a fight. 6 weeks later, it was done. She kept her car, her belongings, and her portion of true marital equity. Nothing more. Nothing she'd tried to engineer. Months passed. Life grew calmer, cleaner, simpler. When I ran into her at a pharmacy half a year later, she looked smaller somehow, carrying guilt like a shadow. She said she was in therapy. She said she knew she'd crossed lines she could never uncross. I listened, but I didn't offer consolation. Some lessons are meant to be carried, not soothed. Before she walked away, she asked softly, "Why didn't you just delete the document? You could have erased everything." I answered honestly, "Because the moment you wrote that plan, you showed me the truth, and the truth is worth keeping." She nodded, eyes wet, then disappeared through the automatic doors. I drove home. My home, the one I protected, the one that stayed steady after the storm. That night, I sat on my couch, turned on a game, and realized something. Sometimes the strongest power a person has isn't anger or force. It's silence, observation, knowing what's coming. She created a plan to liberate herself from me, but all she liberated was my future. And that was enough. If you made it to the end, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Your support means everything.